Hello there, my name is Sky and I'm here to teach you how to download and install ReShade presets and a ray tracing add-on if needed. So ReShade is a form of processing software, so it goes on after what your GPUs would normally process through the game's engine. So first we need to download this. You click on download ReShade 5.1. Since I already have it downloaded in my downloads folder, I will not be downloading it. There is also an add-on section, which I will leave in the comments, in the description rather. And this will go down the route of allowing you to use the RTGI, which I'll go through later. The best way to go down the route of having presets added into your reshading is by using something from like GTA5mods.com. This is the one that I use, which is the realistic LA pre-shade, the ReShade preset. This I was recommended by one or two others. You can obviously edit it as you wish, but as you can see, it actually can look rather nice on higher details. So if your textures are high or very high, it will look absolutely beautiful. Even on normal, it looks fairly decent. If you want to get the ray tracing add-on, so the RTGI add-on, you'll have to go down the route of supporting this guy, going down the route of going to his Patreon and choosing the breakfast tier, aka the beta tier, to gain access to the RTGI as it says right here. This will become relevant later, but for now we're not going to worry about that because I've already done that and I'll show later. So just quickly going back to the preset, you click on download, and because I already had one in my downloads folder, it's already put it there. So let's go to my downloads, and I'll also bring up my GTA as well. So I'll get rid of the one from previous, same with that one, and let's open this up, extract to. So you need something like 7-zip or WinRAR to open that up, as it is a RAR file. I recommend 7-zip because it's relatively easy to use. Some people will recommend using WinRAR. So once you've unzipped it or opened it up from RAR to a normal folder, you have two sections. You have the optional ray tracing shader and the normal shaders. So this will be for anyone that doesn't want to use the ray tracing add-on. So if you just want like the clarity and the HDR, but no ray tracing from the Patreon guy, it will be the case that you'll want this one. However, if you want the ray tracing from the add-on that I'll show later, you'll want this one. So the best thing to do is going down the route of going copy, paste, and putting it in your GTA 5 game folder. This will be for later once you've set up ReShade, just so then it's easier. This will also be used later for the RTGI as well. So you click on the exe to start it. It may not find your GTA 5 when it's loading that through. So the easiest thing to do is find your game files, click on the GTA 5 exe, click open, then click next. Now you've got the API type that GTA 5 uses. Now this will depend on what you have in regards to your graphics settings, but most people will have DirectX 10, 11 selected. Some will try and use OpenGL or Vulkan. I believe it can also support 9, but I can't quite remember. But choose the one that is relevant to what you use for your graphics output. For me, it's 11, so that's what I will choose. Next, it asks for a preset to install. Now, this will be the one that you chose earlier, which is this one here. So if we click Browse, then we click on recon.la, then click Next. Now, it shows that there are many packages here by various different modders and stuff like that. The best thing from my point of view is to uncheck and then check all. But it depends on person by person. Sometimes people don't want it clogged up, and I totally get that. However, if you want to get the RTX add-on to the RTGI add-on, you will require this one, as this is the Patreon guy. This is the creator of it, so you need those add-ons installed. So yeah, just bear that in mind when you're choosing which packages you want to get installed. Next, you just click install. It goes through them all, and it should then say Yes, this is all correct, with the green tick going, this is fine to use. As it did. Right. One thing you need to keep into consideration, this will be for writing it, and this may be a bit of a problem. So before you launch FiveM, the best thing to do with the INI file that you put in this location is make sure that the security is owned and you have full control. So for instance, for me, no, I spelled me wrong. That's the one that I want. So if I click on me, I apparently have full there. That's now good. Now I click on advanced, and I am also now the owner. So that's all good, that's all dandy. I now have full access over that file. So that should now no longer be a problem for this. Sometimes it will be the case that you need to go in both. For instance, you'll sometimes need to go into the group section here and then also in here. Sometimes it's better to go in here first and then in here just to be on the safe side, just to double check that they both say that you have full control over it, so you have ownership and full control. So obviously in here, if we show me, it says I have everything. So backing out of that, that will now work with my user. So with this desktop profile I have now. So next on the list will be going down the route of hopefully booting up FiveM and going into checking the ReShade settings out. So I'll be back. And we're now in FiveM. Now as you can see, ReShade is doing its thing, saying that we're on 5.1.0, which is correct, and it's currently compiling for first time use. Now it will take maybe a couple minutes to fully compile, but 9 times out of 10 it doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. It depends on your computer. Some people will be rather fast on it, some people won't. It just depends on mainly how powerful their computer is and how fast their storage and stuff is for reading. But yeah, so when it gets to about 6, 5, it takes 1 or 2 times, but now it's installed. So as you can see now up here, it says press home to start tutorial. Now what it means by home is you press the home button and it will ask you to skip the tutorial. It will just basically show you where everything is, what everything's shown, and all that. I will go through it briefly. So on the home section, because I've given it permissions, it will show all the add-ons. So I will just click active to top to show what the LA preset comes with initially. And then we will go through what I would normally put on. So you would normally have MXAO, ADOF, levels, HDR, and clarity. Now, if you want to change any of these settings, whether how strong they are, stuff like that, you look down here in the editable section. So, for instance, if I wanted it to be darker on the black point, so it would obviously, yeah, break it. It's obviously the case you can switch it as you wish. For me, I don't normally use that anyway, so I just get rid of it. I would normally use the RTGI setting, the clarity setting, and the HDR setting, but I will get onto the RTGI setting in a moment. So, as you can see here, we have 4, and if we then go down the route of just loading in, I'll give it a moment, and then we'll head back after showing what it looks like, going through the RTX, the RTGI files, because there's something a little different that you need to do prior to launching. It's only 1 or 2 minor little things, but it makes a lot of difference. You know what, you can shush. There we go. Oh. So now that I'm loading into the city, let's just choose location and then I will show you the difference. So as we can see, it looks different. Hi, Laurel. So currently, as we go down the route of doing it, if I turn these off, you can see it looks so much different. At the end of the day, it's the case that you want it to be the case that it looks good for you. You can tweak through these settings, go down the route of seeing what's best for you. But for me personally, it is best to go down the route of choosing just HDR and clarity as a basis and then tweak with what you have. So if I turn that and that back on, you can tell it looks 10 times better. If you want MXAO and AODF, it is the case that sometimes these can mess about with any anti-aliasing settings and stuff like that sometimes. For instance, you've also got something called SSR, which is basically screen space reflections. It is beneficial for some people, but not for others. But personally, I don't like it too much. But like I say, you can edit all these edit all the options for all these different effects, so you can see how strong they get, how weak they get. Sometimes you don't realize that some of the problems you have, seeing that they make no change, could be down to the fact that they're actually nulled out. So for instance, if we had a look at, let's say we want to go back to HDR. Okay, so we go on HDR, we can change the power of how much HDR it has. So let's say instead of 1.3, we wanted it at 1. You can see that the rays up there are roughly a lot brighter, but it is the case that it's a lot brighter overall. However, if we put it back down to about what it was, you see they're not as bright, it's a little bit darker and looks a bit more color depth, better in color depth. So it's all about tweaking it to your preference. Sometimes it will be the case it's nice, sometimes it will be the case it won't be. It's just finding that tweaking of items that you have in your effects to find what is best for you. So next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into my file explorer and I'll explain how the RTGI works with the RTX. So if this is all you wanted for everything excluding the ray tracing, then you can go off and do your own thing. However, for now it's going to be the case that I'm now going to talk about the ray tracing add-on. So I'll be back shortly. So now that we're back in the file explorer, what we can do is talk about the RTX and RTGI add-on that you will need. Best way to get this will be through the Patreon's Discord from this guy. As I said earlier, the lowest tier you can get it is from the breakfast tier here, i.e. the beta version. As it states right here, this is the base tier basically to get access to the RTGI files. So the way you do that is you go to his Patreon and you click on the beta access. Beta access is where you'll get all the updated versions of anything that he's created. The one on Patreon is outdated by like a year or two, so please come to the beta access once you've gained access to it and do it that way. If you need access to it, you go to the Patreon. Once you've signed up on the Patreon, you click on apps in your profile and then connect your Discord and you'll get an automatic invite for this this Discord. One thing you do need to keep in mind when you're doing the RTGI or RTX is that you may get an error saying a high bandwidth, so you need to go down the route of bypassing this. ReShade have now also made this a possibility, but it does come with the warning when it launches, when you're installing it that is, saying that it's only for single player games and that it can ban you on multiplayer games, so you have to bear that in mind, so use at your own risk. You would click this link here and it will go down the route of making it available for you then to bypass that restriction. So you would click it, click continue to download, and because I've already got it downloaded, it will say +1 I'm not going to bother. So, going back to where we want to be, we have my version, which has the RTX, which if I drag over, I'll replace. So that's now my version that I've edited slightly on the preset, including the RTGI. And just to be on the safe side, you would need to go into the optional ray tracing shader if this is the one you wanted earlier. You would click on this, drag this in, and do the same as before, where you go into your properties, check on the security, then you would go to the advanced, make sure it's you that uses that, and then also go here, go onto you, and make sure that that's all correct. And obviously if it wasn't, you go in here, you type in what your user is and do it that way. So, with that out of the way, before we switch over to 5M to make sure that it's all working on ReShade, there is one major thing that you will have to do. Because of the fact it requires access to your depth buffer, Jesus Christ, a bit of a tongue twister for me today. You will have to go through the exe applications, so this one, this one, this one, and this one, and make sure that all of them have access to run it as admin. So you click on your compatibility tab, you then click on change all users, and then click run this program as admin in here. So then it allows all users, including ReShade, to run it as admin so it can gain access to the depth buffer. This depth buffer is important for the RTX and RTGI to go ahead. But with that being said, it's a case I'll switch back into 5M, we'll load up, and I'll show you what the case is with it and what some of the problems are. So, now that I'm now in 5M, you will see that I have my 3 preferred add-ons, packages, whatever you want to call them, active. Now, this is the one that I was in reference to earlier. This is RTGI, or the RTX add-on that you need. This is a little difficult if you don't do it right. There are 1 or 2 things that you need to keep into consideration. One is making sure that when you load into the game, that you don't freak out and go, why is my fade out rate, why is my game not showing, why is the shader not working? This could be down to 1 or 2 different things. One could be your fade out range, and one could be the different types of depth buffers, which I'll show once we've loaded in. So I'll just quickly load in and we'll get this all sorted, because you'll see the effects as it happens. So, hopefully it doesn't take too long to load in today. But it shouldn't be too bad. Why am I so coffee today? I don't know why. I'm constantly having this problem as a reason. But it's not too bad of a problem. Now, one thing you will notice, once I've loaded up, I will show you exactly how to check your depth buffer is correct and make sure that everything's running smoothly. So, let's load in my last location just for ease of use. Now, as you can see, if I go to my home and turn off RTGI, mine says it's apparently not working. Best way to check this is by going through this. Now, there are multiple things that you could do for this. You do want to make sure that if you're running DLSS, that this is turned on. So that would be through your GPU control panel. But if we go to display depth, this will be what shows you this. This is what it should look like. You should have on the right hand side, if you click on this, you should have your depth map and your normal map. this is what a normal map would look like. It will be the case it will show all sorts of curves and stuff like that. However, if you go onto your depth map, it will be the case that it should look like it's both white and black and looks, you know, looks like it's got depth. So on certain items it will be darker and some it will be lighter. If it doesn't, then it could be down to one or two different things, but it's best to have it side by side to make sure they're working in unison. So in this sense, it is working, so I won't have to worry about this. But if it isn't, you check through here and go through and you check, make sure it's all, you know, honky-dory, it looks funky, all that sort of stuff. So you look for the one that is got the most draw calls, that is constantly going. So in my case, it is this one, not this one, because this one's for something completely different. This is the one that you will want. You'll want to make sure that if it matches similarly, that it could be a resolution problem. You could have multiple that the same resolutions, so bear that in mind. Go through the ones that are calling draw calls first, and go through also the ones that have the same resolution. But with RTGI,
hey there, partner.
Howdy. With RTGI, it is the case that you will want to check your fade out range, because this you don't want to be stupidly low at like 0.0. You want it to be maybe around 0.8 to 0.1, and this is the main point that you will need it at, because then that way you can tell 9 times out of 10 if it's on or off. As you can see, it's very slight, but you can see that the shadows around here will be slightly not sharper per se, but more like soft and ray traced. Obviously, with the limitations in play, it is the case that you will have the problem of visual glitches, and that does happen at time. As you can see, sometimes things flicker, but overall it's very minor things because of the way this processing works. If it was native ray tracing, it would not do this usually, but overall it's not actually too bad. The version of RTGI that I run doesn't drop frames that much. It maybe drops it by 5, so as long as you're not running at like 30 FPS, you should be fine overall. But hopefully this should give you some insight into what is expected in the download and install of ReShade and the RTGI add-on, or the RTX add-on for reshading. With that being said, I bid you all farewell.